Hey everybody, today I wanted to take a look at a game called Nightfall. Nightfall is a deck building game in which the sun has stopped coming up, and so werewolves and vampires and ghouls and these hunters who are hunting down the various factions there all come out and do battle basically with one another. And so the players are going to be using these characters, using specific actions to wound their opponents, to be the one that comes out on top and therefore win the game. Let me show you how the game works, and we're going to come back and I'll tell you what I think of it. The objective of Nightfall is to give your opponent more wounds than you take yourself. Basically, if you're the one who has the fewest wounds at the end of the game, you win. To set up the game, we're going to put a certain number of these depending on the number of players. I've set up the game for 2 players here. We are going to give each player a starting deck of cards, which has 12 cards in it, and they look like that. I'll show you these a little closer in a second. We put 8 common cards, 8 common decks, I should say, in the middle of the table. And each player has 2 decks that belong to only them. Only they can buy cards from those. This is all achieved through a little bit of drafting at the beginning of the game. Now, each player would shuffle up and draw 5 cards from their deck, pick a starting player, and you're off. So, let me show you the parts on these cards and what they look like. So there you have one. Up here you have the moons, which are basically the main mechanism of the game. It's what they call the chaining mechanic, and I'll show you a little closer what that means. But basically each card has a big moon and typically 2 little moons. In this case a single one, because it's a starting card. But something like this has the big green one there, and then blue and white. I'll get into that in just a second. And so, moons up here, the name. This is the cost, which is nothing because it's a starting deck card. Up here, the damage the card will do. These little red lines are the damage the card can take. In this case, for instance, this guy it's a tank. He doesn't hit for anything, but he can take 4 hits. And the way the game tracks that is if this guy gets hit 1 time, then you take the card and turn it sideways so that the 3 here is facing up, and you know he's got 3 hits left. And so, name, cost, how much he hurts for, how much he can take, moons, some information, and then down here effects and such. So if this has a chain effect, which means it triggers during its time in the chain. So basically when it comes off the chain. And then while it's in play, it says it exiles when it's destroyed or discarded, which every starting card says. So the deck will actually thin itself out as you play, which is very interesting. And so, let's say I have this hand. Let's give my opponent here a hand of cards. Whoops. Alright. Let's say they've got those there. And I'm going to put their hand right there for a second. And so on my turn, I would start the chain. Very simple. So let's say I want this card in play. I'm going to play it on the table to create the chain. Let me move these out of the way here to show you how this works. And so I would put this card on the chain. And I have basically, if I had another card that had yellow, I could link that card to this one, because this is the color of this card. And these little ones are what you can play after it. So I'm going to play that. I have no other yellow card. So I'm done, and I pass to my opponent. My opponent then can link off of my last card. They'll look at their hand. Haha, they have one. They'll put this on the chain in front of them somewhere. And now that we're both done, that everyone's done, then the cards come off the chain in reverse order. So the last one that was played comes off the chain. It's in front of them. Boom. And then mine comes off the chain. It's in front of me, ready to go. As you can see here, this guy blocks damage that would normally be inflicted on you, the player, and while it discards itself when it's dead, like they all do. And so, that's the first round. After that's done, then I can buy cards. And to buy cards, I get 2 points of purchase power, basically, and I can discard extra cards from my hand for 1 more apiece. And so at the beginning of the game, typically you're going to cycle through your hand a few times just to have more money, basically. So I have 2, and I will discard all 4 of these. Let's say they go in my discard pile. And now I have 2 and 4, so that's 6. And now I'm going to take a look here and say, ooh, this guy is really great. He is a heavy hitter. Look at that. Big ghost. He doesn't even have an effect because he's so massive. I'm going to buy him. He goes in my discard pile. That's 3 I've spent on him. And I can spend 3 more, and I'm going to buy my own card here. One of my own decks. My opponent has no access to this. And this one, as you can see there, is going to let me mess with the chain. So it says target order in the chain does not resolve. So basically, it's a counter. This will cancel something that would come up in the chain. And since it's first in, last out, then I can respond with this. If my opponent gives me access to a yellow, or I give myself somehow access to yellow, well, I can cancel one of the cards that they would have played that turn. Very cool. So I would buy that. And then I would draw a new hand of 5 cards from my deck. And if I need to shuffle the discard pile and give myself a brand new deck, then I can do that. Then it's my opponent's turn. The first thing that happens on a player's turn, which now my opponent would do, is the combat step. And the combat step is pretty straightforward, but he doesn't have any fighters. So let's pretend that the combat step is my own, and I have these 2 cards out in front of me. First thing that happens is these 2 cards attack whoever I want them to attack. I pick a player. In this case, I only have one enemy, so I pick them. And both of these attack for that much. If my opponent does not block these, then they'll take a wound per damage. So, in this case, 2 wounds. And they'll just grab wounds there from the top of the deck. Those go in their discard pile. If they want to, they can block these. In fact, in this case, that they have this big guy out, Bad Smoke. If they would take 2 hits, Bad Smoke says that he basically blocks all the damage that would have been inflicted on you. So he would take him from the 4 up here, and he would go boom, boom, and he would have taken 2 hits. And you take none. So very useful. After these have attacked and you blocked or didn't, took damage or didn't, then they are discarded. So you need to have them at the beginning of your turn, they attack, and they go away. Normally in your discard pile, but if they're starting minions, they just go away from the game. And so that's basically it. You're going to go back and forth, buying cards, triggering chains. Sometimes the chains can get very complex. You know, I can do something like, let's say I start a chain and I'll play this. Then I'll play this, because I get the purple from there. Then let's say I'll play this one, because I get the blue from there, and then I'll let my opponent play. Let's say they have nothing, so no blue, no green, they want to chain off of, so fine. Now these come off the chain from the last one in. Another thing to be aware of is what they call the kicker, which is down here. You can see another moon there. And the kicker triggers if the card that allowed you to play this card is that color. So in this case, this card was played from this card, which is purple. Purple, this kicker is going to activate, which says target player's minions cannot block damage from card text. Okay, which would be good because, well, I get to do something like that. Inflict 3 damage on target minion. And I get to do... This one would have been a bad first play because it cancels another card still on the chain. Well, this is the last card on the chain. But that's basically how the game goes. You play these out. They stay in front of you for a round, hopefully. You might have to sometimes burn them to protect yourself. You attack with them at the beginning of the turn. They go away. Then you take your turn. Then you buy cards. That's pretty much it. One more thing I want to mention here is that there's 2 kinds of cards in the game. You have minions, which look like that. They have that card frame. Text right there in black background. And then you have actions, which are these. They have that silver frame, slightly different. And these, once you play, basically they go away. They're actions. They just resolve and they're gone. These stick around in front of you to fight or defend you. You're going to continue back and forth, hurting each other till you run out the specified number of wounds. Once that's done, you count up who took the most wounds. And basically, whoever took the fewest is the winner of Nightfall. Let me run you through a couple of my favorite cards, but before I do that, I'm going to show you what the wounds do in the game besides, well, killing you. The wounds, since they go in your deck, you're able to, at the end of your turn, after you've drawn back up to your hand size, which is 5, in this case, you're able to discard all of the wounds you have and then draw back up 2 cards per wound you've discarded, going above those 5. And so the more you're getting hurt, the bigger hand size or the bigger hand you go into the next turn with, typically. So it's an interesting balance. Also, as you can see there, this one says bleed right there. This one says burn. And this one says bite. That really doesn't have too much of an effect on the game at this point, basically in the base set. But it will be important in later sets. I just want to make you aware that that really is not a problem right now. Alright, let's take a look at some cards here. Alton Hickman, as you can see, is a vampire. Goes by the name of Mr. Mister, apparently. And while he's in play, the card cannot be blocked, which is sweet. I really like this card. His kicker is that you can place a target card from your discard pile on top of your deck so you can put something back in your hand quicker. I really like this card. Next, we have Tag Team Takedown. This is an action. This is a minion. And this one in the chain destroys a target minion. And so once this comes off the chain, boom, you can just nuke something. Very cool. You have to be careful, though, that your opponent actually has minions out there, or you're going to have to kill something of your own. Weird, and you have to be careful, but that's how it works. The kicker there, each opponent receives 1 wound. Very cool. We have Zacharias Sands, a vampire, and he, on the chain, will inflict 2 damage on target minion once he comes off that chain. I like him quite a bit as well. And his kicker is that he can just destroy that minion instead of inflicting the damage on it. I like his cost to his power ratio, and I do like that chain ability quite a bit. Death Grip is another action. This one lets you inflict 3 damage on target player. And the kicker there is that the player receives 2 wounds instead. The difference there, wounds is straight up cards. Damage inflicted can be basically deflected by things like, well, having bad smoke in play, for instance. He'll take that damage instead. But if you give the player wounds, it's straight up the wound cards. Alright, we have Sir John Travail here, one of my favorites by far. And in play, so he doesn't have a chain ability, he has an in-play ability, which means it triggers, well, after he's come off the chain and he's in front of you. And while he's in play, buying orders, and that's orders you claim is basically buying cards from your own stacks or the common stacks, cost you 1 less influence, to a minimum of 1. Really cool. Obviously a good card to get the really crazy stuff in your deck early. Get this guy out there, start buying up cards. His kicker lets you resolve the text on the next order in the chain twice. Don't play him first. Play him after something cool, and then you get to do that twice. Very neat. There you have a little sample of some of the cards that come in Nightfall, the base set. There's 2 things I really like about the deck building game of Nightfall here. The first is that chaining mechanism. I think that chaining mechanism is really smart. It's tactical, it's interesting, it's engaging. I love how it'll make you think about what you draft at the beginning of the game, so which 2 cards you give yourself and yourself alone. You want them to work well together. You want them to be able to chain off of one another well. You are encouraged to look at your opponents and see what they have access to, what they've been buying, not give them access to those colors. So I think it's interesting. It's not a thematic mechanism, but it is an interesting one and a clever one, which works well, and I like that. The other thing I really like is the in-your-face nature of the game. The game is extremely confrontational. And when this came out, that was a very original thing. There's been other deck-building games that have done that in years since, but when this came out, going for each other was a novel idea of using a deck-building game to directly attack the other opponents and give them wounds, right? So we had things that were purely economic, like Dominion. We had games in which you attacked some other entity, like Thunderstone, but in this one you go right for the other players, and I think that's neat. The game, on the negative side, can be a little swingy, meaning if you just don't get the cards you need to put out there and block, you're going to take 6 wounds to the face, which is probably going to mess you up for the game, right? So the game can sometimes end like, 3 wounds to 16. It's like, well, what's going on there? Well, yeah, it's a swinging game. But that doesn't bother me too much. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game. But be aware, if you're looking for a deck building game which is super balanced, super strategic, all of that good stuff, this might not be the one. This is, it plays fast and loose. The artwork is a huge plus for me. I think the game looks really cool, and the theme is a huge plus for me. All the other deck building games, pretty much all the ones I can think of off the top of my head, are blown away by this theme. It's not necessarily original, but man, it's so cool, and I love the vampires and werewolves and the hunters, and it's just all that mix works well together for me, and I'm a big fan of it. So, if all that sounds interesting to you, you want a game that plays fast and loose, you want a deck building game with some personality, you're okay with a little swinginess in the game, you're okay with a little clunkiness in that whole chain working itself back out backwards, then I would recommend it. It's not a deck building game that gets a ton of love these days, but I'm a big fan of it. I actually like it quite a bit, and I think it does deserve more attention. I think it's not necessarily been overshadowed by newer and sort of brighter deck building games. So, Nightfall, a pretty cool deck building game. Check it out, and I'll see you.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.